Welcome to the Shadow Signal, the frequency of the unknown. I'm Josh Rutledge.
And I'm Stefan Gearhart. Together we dive deep into high strangeness, UFOs, cryptids, the paranormal, psychic phenomenon, and the hidden truths that echo just beneath the surface.
Somewhere between reality and myth lies the signal. Can you hear it?
Tune in. The Shadow Signal is live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic and exciting and spooky episode of The Shadow Signal. I am your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am very excited to be joined, as always, by the mysterial one himself, Mr. Josh Rutledge. What's happening, Josh?
It's a fun time in the UFO world if anybody's paying attention to
It is.
things.
I am not a Trumper, but it's about the only thing I get excited about is when I see that he might
Yeah.
do stuff.
Although
So
I don't think he ever will. I mean, I don't know.
I don't either, but I just see it occasionally.
But maybe
So,
after the thing that Obama just did.
right. Yeah, let's talk about Obama. He was just on
Brian
Brian Tyler
Tyler Cohen,
Yep,
which Brian Tyler Cohen is like, he's a independent
journalist.
news
Yeah.
journalist guy that
Yep.
primarily operates on YouTube, but he's been featured on like CNN and stuff.
Oh yeah.
He's gotten big
Yep.
over the years.
Yep. I've been following him for a long time.
And he recently got the opportunity to interview President Obama, and that his full interview is on YouTube. You can go Brian Tyler Cole and find it. Most of what they talked about was Obama's opinions on Trump and how Trump is handling some of the things that are going on. But at the end of the interview, like within the last few minutes, Brian Taylor Cohen got to ask Obama a few questions that were just kind of really fast. Obama gave kind of one sentence responses and then they
Yeah.
moved on. So one of the questions that was asked was, "Are aliens real?" And Obama said, and this is word for word, "They are real. I haven't seen them, but they're not at Area 51. There is no underground base there unless there's a grand conspiracy
Yeah.
that extends beyond the knowledge of the president."
Which, of course, people are jumping in their seats right now just listening, go, of course there is.
Yeah. So I when I first heard it, I thought, oh, he's gonna say, aliens like the way that we talk about immigrants.
Right.
But that, the fact that he threw in there, they're not at Area 51, there is no underground base, means that he interpreted the question the same way we interpret the question, which is
Yeah.
extraterrestrial type, aliens.
Yep.
Um, so I thought about it and I was like, hey, this makes Obama, in my opinion, the disclosure president.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Because and I honestly, don't know if he was in jest or what, but I've always said if Trump had knowledge of it, we'd all know by now.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. And I thought about this after, because somebody else messaged me and said, "What do you think?" And at first, like I said, disclosure president, etc. But then I really got to thinking about it, and I was like, is Obama like chiding Trump to try to get Trump to
To
go on the
disclose?
record and disclose? Because Trump despises Obama,
Oh, I know.
right?
Yeah.
He
Hates him.
has tried to overturn everything that Obama did when Obama was in office. I think the only thing he hasn't overturned yet is the Affordability Care Act.
Yeah.
Um, but as soon as
But he
but
tried. He tried.
he's tried, and he's constantly talking about how bad it is and how he can put something
Right.
better in place and so on. And I don't want to make this a political, but
Yeah.
bottom line is Trump hates Obama. If Obama now is classified in some way, shape, or form as the disclosure president, which is, frankly, I made a post about it in hopes that it
Yeah.
might prompt Trump to be like, screw Obama. I'll tell everybody what's really going on,
Yeah.
because I could, Obama
He's like,
is
look,
a,
I'm a reptile.
yeah. I mean, Obama is a strategic individual, and I
Yeah.
could see him saying that just so it might prod Trump into doing the thing that everybody is waiting for him to do.
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree. And I would love to see that happen. I would love
So,
to see that happen.
there's talk that Trump was supposed to do it in like July of this year, and then it moved
Yeah.
up to May of this year. Um, so it'll be interesting to see if Obama, is the one who pushes Trump's buttons enough that Trump actually goes on the air and says all the details,
Yep. Yep.
all the
I
deets.
completely all the deets.
So it'll be an interesting next couple of months to see how things pan out for sure.
Yep.
But
Yep.
bottom
Or
line, in my
yeah, I'm
mind,
excited to see somebody
yeah,
because at some point Obama's going to get hit again and say, you're on record saying aliens are real. So I'm excited
yeah,
to see what he
through the
says about
next,
that.
yeah, if he's going
Yep.
to elaborate, because that's the thing I think about Cohen is that I don't think Cohen is like a member. I don't think he would describe himself as a believer. He probably just asked the question as like, what's an off the wall question that I could ask the
Right.
president? But if he were more of a UFO believer or experience or any of that kind of stuff, he would have asked a follow up question.
Oh yeah.
So I'm waiting to see somebody else who is in that camp, let's say, get a hold of Obama and actually ask some of those follow up questions.
Yep. Yep. I love it, man. I love it.
So, anyways, that's the exciting news of the UFO disclosure topic that's happening right now. And so, if you're listening to our podcast and you're not familiar with what's going on, just go check out that interview with Brian Tyler Cohen. And then, yeah, there's just a lot of
Yeah.
fun stuff
I mean,
happening.
it's clipped all over the place, so it's super easy to find.
Yeah. So,
All right.
anyways, let's go ahead and jump into Psychic Word of the Week.
And now, the psychic word of the week.
All right. Psychic word of the week brought to you by the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary by June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, honey bear. I love you. I never knew you, but I swear you're around me at all times taking care of my daughter. Because that's what psychic ladies do.
Yeah.
I wonder if she was a psychic too. Hold on a second. June G. Bletzer, noted teacher. It doesn't say she was a psychic, but it does say she was a teacher of parapsychology and dream analysis and stuff. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Maybe she
Interesting.
never claimed the title, but, she
Yeah.
was. So,
Anyways, I flipped through the pages. I landed on page 255. And the first thing that I haven't done it this way in a while. But the words that grabbed my eyes here, the term was glorified body. Glorified body. It says, glorified body is an intelligence that through many incarnations on earth has so purified his or her soul mind that they can now transmute to all planes of the etheric world and function properly under the laws of each plane.
hmm.
When appearing in the earth plane, he or she takes a physical grouping of atoms, but the texture of the body is not as a normal physical body is known to be. Appears to clairvoyance as a beautiful radiance encompassing a perfect physical form with an intensified brilliance around the head. For example, Jesus called it a crown of glory.
Hmm.
A purified soul mind in a glorified body does not die, but when ready to return to the etheric world, rises and ascends.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
And, somewhat related to this episode's topic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It reminds me of the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith talks a lot about different prophets and different
Mhm.
higher planed individuals. Uh, Jesus being one of them, Muhammad, and all these
Yeah.
different ones. Like I believe the Baha'i faith kind of covers all of them, and it's like they were all ascendants.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you talk about Alan Greenfield talked
mhm.
about the ascended masters, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, as being, even when he was talking with Terry in his second interview, he asked Terry if he was an ascended master.
Mm,
So,
interesting. Yeah.
maybe maybe he was.
Yeah,
So
maybe. I don't know. Very, very interesting. Glorified body. And it's interesting because I kept waiting for it to say that Jesus was a glorified body, but no, Jesus talked about
yeah,
glorified bodies, which is interesting. So,
yeah. I mean, it's always interesting too. You think about the depictions of a lot of prophets and Jesus and etc. in kind of like Catholic faith and
mhm,
the art around Catholicism. They always kind of have that what we distinguish as a halo, right?
right.
But there is that aura, if you will, around their
Yeah.
head, which is
Yep.
what
That
she's
crown
talking about.
aura.
Yeah,
Which makes you wonder. I wish Santosh was on the show if that is like physicalization of the crown chakra, maybe.
possibly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, it makes me wonder because you said that she was a teacher of psychic psychology or something like that. I can't remember the word you said.
Parapsychology.
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 Right.
Just
And
like the
those
Ghostbusters.
right. And those were a lot of like there were a lot of degrees in that in like the early or the late 70s, early 80s. They don't really
80s,
you
yeah.
don't find them anymore. But
Nope. Especially not
um
in major institutions.
right. But it makes me wonder if having an interest or affinity in kind of Christianity or Catholicism was some sort of a prerequisite because it seems like a lot of people who have parapsychology degrees also come from kind of a Catholic or
Yeah, I mean
Christian.
Catholics tend to be the demonologists and
Yeah,
and whatnot and stuff like that as well. So yeah, very interesting,
very, very cool. And
especially back then. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that psychic word of the week. And without further ado, let's jump
Boom.
into our what? You got something else?
Nope. I said boom. Kick
Okay,
it. What's
boom.
the main topic?
That main topic. The main story. So the main topic for today, for this episode, we're going to be talking about something that I've been seeing a lot of on
Ditto.
TikTok and Instagram and
And
everything else and
Reddit. Ugh.
Reddit. Yep, and
It's
it's
like as
it's
soon as you mentioned it, I started seeing it everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, that's the algorithms at work right there. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, it's called the GATE program.
Ooh.
GATE, not confused with the Gateway program, but
Right.
we are going to touch on that a little bit. So the at the various high level, the GATE program, as it's talked about online, was a program that existed in the 70s and 80s to test children for being quote unquote gifted. But
Right.
the way
Yeah. It
that
was
it,
called the Gifted and Talented Education
yep,
Program, right?
yep.
Yeah.
But the way that it's talked about online is that these children who were a part of this program were given, I don't know, controversial is not the right word, but let's say, I don't know, unfamiliar testing practices with
Mm-hmm.
trying to identify the depth of their giftedness.
Yeah.
Some people reported saying like sitting in front of a television set and having it play just kind of various weird images and having the child respond or react to it. Listening to sounds or tones in their ear and
Mm-hmm.
having engaging their response to those things. Um, and then the adults that are today starting to think about whether or not they were actually a part of a
Yep.
GATE program also have things like shared dreams or shared memories.
Yep.
One of the ones that I sent you, Stefan, was do you have a dream where you're in a house? It could be a house that you own or a house that you're looking at or whatever. And you find, often in an attic or a basement, this kind of hidden passage that leads to a completely other section of the house that you didn't know
Yep.
was there. And I, for one, have had that dream multiple
Ditto.
times. So, anyways, we thought in today's episode, let's talk about what the GATE program is,
Yep.
what its connections might be to the Gateway program by Robert Monroe. And then, is there kind of a precedence for the CIA or some other government agency potentially being involved in such a program?
Yep. I before we started, it's like I even have memories of being given a headset and listening to tones, certain tones, and not asking me if I can hear them, but what does it make me feel?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
So,
I have not explored honestly whether or not in my youth I would have had any of those experiences. Like I do remember getting the ear tone test, but
mhm.
I now in today's world associate that with the hearing test.
Right. Again, I remember that because that's a separate thing. I remember
Right.
asking, "Can you hear it? Can you hear it?" But I have a memory of being in like an RV,
Mhm.
like that they parked out front. No, I guess not an RV, but like a big van or truck
Yeah.
that had like a classroom inside or whatever, and being asked, "How does it make you feel?
Mm.
How does this tone make you feel?"
I didn't include this in my research, but it also is very curious to me that around the time that the GATE program was being conducted, we also saw a spike in ADD diagnosis.
Welcome. That's both of us.
Yeah, that's both of us.
ADHD.
Right.
Yeah,
So, again, is it, did the GATE program identify people with that are quote unquote gifted, and the medical community label them ADD so that they can be tracked throughout their, I don't know, we're
sure.
getting a little conspiracy
I
here,
know
but
we're getting conspiracy theory. Yeah,
but it
we
makes
have
you
super
wonder.
brains. We have
Right.
super brains.
Right. So, anyway, so let's start off with
Yeah.
we're not going to start off with what the GATE program was. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. I want to start off with, um, has the U.S. government ever conducted any type of experimentation, aimed at understanding, kind of a depth of consciousness, let's say?
Right. Of course they have.
And of course they have. And the very first one that probably everybody is, screaming at their radios or the TV
Yep.
is MK Ultra.
MK Ultra, which sounds like a superhero team. But
It
yeah,
does.
Brad and I covered that many, many moons ago, early in Fearscape. So if you want a full get go on MK Ultra, check that out. But what are you going to say about it?
Yeah. So I mean, bottom line, it happened from 1953 to 1973.
Yep.
Um, and it was most concerned with, mind control, behavior modification, enhancements in interrogation, and things like that. It was using like drugs like LSD,
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis research, sensory deprivation, electroshock protocols. Um, Basically they brought in these civilians off the street, were involved in the program, and they subjected them to all of these different experiments, trying to figure out, the how long they could expose someone to these things before they cracked, or you know um you know did they possess any other abilities to resist interrogation? Do they possess abilities to have psychic perception, or whatever the
Right.
case may be? And really it was only found out because somebody blew the whistle.
Yep.
um, and in 1973, actually, many records were destroyed.
Yep.
So, like, we don't know who all was a part of the MK Ultra program, right? As far as who conducted it, as well as who might have been subjected to the research that was in it. Um, but when they blew the whistle on it, that's when Congress got involved and said, "Hey, wait a minute. There are some there are some ethical violations here."
Yep.
And that's what brought it to light, is that this, idea that, and then of course conspiracy theorists got a hold of it. It was like, the CIA was using it to organize psychic child soldier programs and all this kind of stuff. And we, because so many records were destroyed, we really don't know
Yeah.
the depth of what they were trying to do with this program. But we do know for a fact that it existed.
That it existed. Yep. What isn't that movie Men Who Stare at Goats that had a lot to do with MK Ultra as well? That's a great movie if you haven't seen it.
I thought that was more about, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the Stargate program.
Maybe I don't know. I just know it had to do with psychic stuff. So
Yeah.
and the military.
So that kind of gives, the next phase we're going to talk about is the Stargate program. Now, interesting enough, MK Ultra ended in 1973. The Stargate program started in 1972.
Hmm.
It's almost like somebody saw the writing on the wall and was like, "We got
Yep.
to rebrand this thing, fellas." um, so they started Project Stargate started and ran from 1972 until 1995. And the Stargate program was all about remote viewing. And it was research started at the Stanford Research Institute. This is where I think your men who stare at goats comes from.
Okay.
Um, and so the program evolved under multiple code names. It was later consolidated underneath Stargate, but it existed underneath multiple code names throughout the time that it existed. Over roughly 20 years, military personnel were trained in structured remote viewing protocols. Laboratory experiments were conducted. Operational viewings were attempted. And in 1995, the CIA commissioned an independent evaluation. And the conclusion was that small statistical anomalies and it had inconsistent operational value, and the program was terminated. Or
Boo.
was it?
Or was it? Exactly.
Or was it just rebranded again into something else?
Yeah.
Because I didn't really cover this a lot in in my research, but you also think about Jake Barber and his team, if you're familiar with those folks, that came
Hmm.
forward a couple about two like 18 months ago, talking about a program that they were a part of called the Psionics program, where they used effectively remote viewing techniques to try to commandeer UFOs with their minds and control them to bring them into landing so that they could be recovered.
Yeah.
That seems like a natural progression from a remote viewing program to, okay, we've proven that this thing is possible from a remote viewing perspective. Let's see if we can actually get our soldiers to contact UAP in the military
Right.
terminology and see if we can get anything from that. It seems like a natural progression in my mind.
Yeah.
But
Ditto.
what do I know? I'm just an ADD gifted child. So,
Yeah.
all
I was just part of the gate program. No big deal.
right. So, this is not really a fast forward. This is a rewind. So let's talk about quickly about the gateway process with Robert Monroe. Now we
Which
did a
we covered. Yeah.
Yep, we did a full episode on Robert Monroe and his contributions and the gateway process and everything. And this is where like that psychic word of the week that you talked about a while ago. I would say that it's possible that Robert Monroe was one of those individuals because
Oh, agreed.
he could travel to various planes of existence and operate on those planes of existence as if he was natively part of them. So
Hmm.
maybe he was an ascended master. So the gateway process in the 1950s, Robert Monroe was a broadcaster. His whole interest was TV, and he began experimenting with audio tones and sleep learning techniques. And he really wanted to figure out ways that he could incorporate this into broadcasting to maybe, sell more Coca-Cola or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But this led to the development of the Hemi-Sync system, which is the use of binaural beats where one tone is played in one ear, one tone is played in the other, and your mind, the two different hemispheres of your mind, sync and actually play. You hear a different tone.
Yeah. I
So,
like Hemi-Sync.
like if 222 was played and 225 was played, you would hear both, but you would also hear 3 hertz as the third
Right.
tone. And he later discovered that like different binaural beats would produce different results for different people. So the higher the third tone is, the more of a existential type experience that you have.
Right.
You can play tones to help you remember things. You can play tones that can help you, in his mind, learn while you were sleeping. You could go to
Yep.
sleep with headphones on and play a record and wake up and remember everything that you had listened to while your body was sleeping.
Yep. I use it for anxiety to deal with anxiety.
Yeah. Sometimes I have anxiety on an airplane when I'm flying an airplane. I have a binaural beats app on my phone that I'll just put my
Hmm.
earbuds in and I'll just listen to that and it'll help me calm down. So yeah.
Yep.
So he was initially interested in whether or not audio frequencies could enhance learning, like we said, but this later led to his use of his binaural beats and his hemi-sync process to actually trigger out of body experiences that
Yeah.
he then used to explore different planes of existence. If you're not familiar with Robert Monroe, I highly recommend either A, you go back and listen to our older episode that talks about him, or B, pick up one or multiples of his books
Yep.
because he's a fascinating gentleman and I think did a lot to push our understanding of ourselves, our bodies, and how we are meant to interact with reality. So in the 1980s, Monroe's work became the structured gateway process. And in 1983, a U.S. Army officer authored a report evaluating the gateway process. This document attempted to frame Monroe's methods in theoretical physics language. Um, Now, this document is actually available on the CIA's website. It's a part of their
Hmm.
document dumps from FOIA. And this is where a lot of people, I think, it rejuvenated an interest in Hemi-Sync and the gateway process because people stumbled across this document on the CIA's website and was like, oh, what's this? And then they started researching into it. And that kind of spun things up again. But at the time in the 80s, when Monroe came out with this process, you could get um, his gateway process came on cassette tapes, multiple cassette tapes, and then
Yeah.
later on CDs. You could get the box set of CDs, and it's broken up across different phases, if you will. So you got phase 3, phase 10, so on and so forth. Each one taking you deeper um, you know, into your consciousness and being able to explore the nature of your reality beyond just the physical plane.
Right.
So, how does that relate to the gate process? Well,
How does it, Josh?
well, like you mentioned, the gate process stood for um, oh, and I'm totally just blanking on what it
Gifted
stood
and
for.
talented
Yeah,
education program.
thank you. Gifted and
Yep.
Talented Education Program. And so, MK Ultra, Stargate, even their interest in the gateway process shows that the government was interested in helping or not helping, probably not helping, but gaining some advantage over their adversaries in the scape of psychic warfare.
Right.
Um, so, one thing I want to take an aside, there's no real documented thing here, but I'll say that I think as generally we understand as people, especially people in the phenomena, in the experiences with ghosts and poltergeists and things like that, is that everybody would agree that when you're a child, you're more open to the phenomena.
Correct.
Um, and so I will take a leap here and say that even if the GATE program started as just a means to help find and foster kids who weren't their needs weren't being met by the public education system, even if it started as that, the CIA may have taken interest because through the 30 years of them conducting various programs, they likely would hit walls with adults.
Yep.
Because once you kind of reach adulthood and society tells you that, there's no such thing as fairies and all this kind of stuff, and you start to really turn off those magical parts of yourself to fit into society, most adults don't really have the automatic capacity to imagine a world where those things exist.
Right.
So it's possible that the CIA saw that with the GATE program, this gave them an opportunity to test to see if children had the ability natively where adults did not.
Yeah.
And so there was never actually a federally run GATE program. There was a federal memo that went out to states saying, hey, we think, this would be a good thing to stand up. But each state had to agree to stand up a gate program. The funding was entirely provided by the state. It was a state-run program. There may have been similarities across states, but it was a state-run program.
Right.
So it was decentralized, and it was really more geared towards IQ and achievement testing, and it focused on enrichment and acceleration. So again, if you had the possibility of being, something, beyond what the public school system could meet, they wanted to identify those kids and potentially move them over into schools where they could do more with maybe
Yeah.
what they were given. Um, so many adults, though, that were in the GATE programs, they report feeling different, being pulled from class, experiencing early testing, developing strong imaginative or intuitive lives. Some have later connected those childhood experiences with broader Cold War narratives, even feeling like they had a purpose. They could make a difference as it related to the Cold War. So the interesting piece is that we know the CIA has taken an interest before. The Gateway process from Robert Monroe had the ability to enhance our understanding of the world.
Right.
I mean, is it possible then that children who were a part of the GATE program were unwittingly exposed to techniques in the gateway process that led to us having different types of lives as adults? Because we are more, for the most, and I'll talk about me and you, we are more open to the phenomena than our parents are,
Oh, yeah.
and their parents were. We also are more empathetic to the plight of other people. All these things are, typically associated with people who, number one, have been abducted, and number two, have had some sort of a significant spiritual awakening. Um, so, is it possible that, you know, children who are part of the GATE program have a higher imaginative capacity? That their suggestibility that these things aren't real
Right.
is somehow overwritten by their involvement in this GATE program. That's why we as adults haven't reached this conclusion that none of this stuff is real, because we're predispositioned to not accept that narrative.
Yeah.
Are children more open to altered states? I think so.
I think so too.
It's often been speculated that kids going through puberty are a potential source of a lot of the poltergeist activity,
Correct.
because
Yeah.
there's like psychic turbulence that's happening and causing these things to fluctuate. So if that's the case, could a system like this have sought to capture that psychic turbulence and focus it and direct it on something else?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a really fascinating topic, and the fact that you watch these videos on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, talk about people who are, similarities and synchronicities with the GATE
Mm-hmm.
program. It really makes me think that it's possible that, well, we know the GATE program existed, but it's possible that the CIA did have some sort of involvement or interest in the GATE program, and that even though it was done at individual state levels, those states had to buy their material from somewhere.
Yeah.
And the fact that all the states kind of held a similar type program leads me to think that whoever they bought their material from was probably the same company. And was that company a front for the CIA?
So what's really interesting is talking about the different mental health issues that have come up. that I've seen on TikTok. They talk about more than just ADHD and ADD and things like that. But one that really grabbed me, and this happens to a lot of Gen Xers and Zennials, like our generation, like specifically makes you wonder about this, is night terrors. A lot of people that feel like that they were in this program developed really bad night terrors after attending. And, a lot of us have night terrors, but I've talked to a lot of boomers. I don't know any of them besides my uncle, who's right on the edge of boomer and Gen X, that had night terrors growing up. I know it's something that's happened for a long time in night
Yeah.
terrors, but there's a lot of us that have had night terrors or have night terrors.
Well, and it really makes you wonder if, like you said, night terrors go back in history, but
Mm-hmm.
um, is there some sort of a cyclical notion? Sorry, not nation, notion to the
Welcome to Cyclical Nation.
nation, yeah, where, uh, you know, groups of people, um, I don't know, I'm gonna get really spiritual here for a moment. Groups of people incarnate with a heightened sensitivity to things beyond their normal realm of existence,
Yeah.
and that those incarnations of heightened, awareness individuals happens on some sort of a cycle. So that it's not so much that it's our generation; it's that we just happen to be in the generation that hit the next cycle of heightened awareness individuals incarnating on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Maybe. Very
Um,
interesting.
so I mean, I'll just say that there is no. I do want to highlight there's no evidence, there's no documentation that anybody has ever come across
Correct.
that shows that the CIA had an interest or was involved in any way, shape, or form with the gateway process or the gate program.
Right.
However, would there have been any documentation available had somebody not blown the whistle on MK Ultra?
And correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because they were in the process of burning everything
Everything.
when somebody blew the whistle. So just because documentation doesn't exist doesn't mean it didn't happen. And that's going to
Yeah.
sound very conspiratorial of me, but I mean,
That's what this podcast is. It's
that's
fine.
right. So I, like I said, I have very few memory, which is, I'll just take a step back and say, which is very odd for me because I have an eidetic memory. I can remember the most monotonous detail about things, like what colors were in somebody's shirt in a meeting that I had 8 years ago.
Right.
But for some reason, when I think back to my childhood and I try to focus my thoughts on being involved in any of this testing, it all just gets really blurry and fuzzy.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like I could think back to my childhood about, riding bikes around the neighborhood and that time that my brother Jed rode his bike through a sprinkler and he turned orange. I don't know, he rusted for some reason.
You
Don't know why that
rusted.
happened, but anyways,
Sure.
um, but uh, like I can remember all kinds of things like that. But if I try to think about school, if I try to think about anything that may have happened in or a part or around school, again, my memories get very fuzzy. So I don't know. And then for me also, when I was researching this, I was like, what does this have to do with the people who think that all abductions are military run?
Right. Yeah.
Mill labs and things. Melinda Leslie up in Sedona here in Arizona, she's a big believer that all abductions are run by the military. And
Yeah.
that they basically plant screen memories of aliens, but in all actuality, it's the military. That falls in line with
It
the
does.
CIA's carrying out of MK Ultra and various things like that. So um, it just, yeah, it's a big rabbit hole, and I'm trying to keep my footing as I tumble
Yeah.
down. So
Yeah. Of course, putting this out there, if any of the listeners feel like you have been a part of it or anything, we would love to
yeah,
get any information from you, things like that. But another thing that all this made me think of is this creepy pasta that's out there from a user on Reddit called Mother Horse Eyes. If you have not checked out, the way to listen to it, it's two episodes of this podcast called Creepcast, which I highly recommend. Creepcast, it's really good. They talk a lot about creepy pastas and all kinds of different things, and they go in depth into these things. They do a two-part episode on Mother Horse Eyes and the flesh interfaces.
Mm.
Is wild stuff. It's like a total of 8 hours long. I mean, this thing, I've listened to the first 6 hours of it, and I mean, I have to take steps back and be like, whew. It's wild. It's really wild. Goes into Vietnam and all kinds of crazy stuff. But yeah, check out the Creepcast episode. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. But just look up Mother Horse Eyes. You'll find it. It's crazy. But they talk a lot about using kids as well to go into these flesh interfaces because the adults were dying. The adults couldn't handle it at all, and they had to use children, which was just it's being a father now. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there as something additional. I know it's a creepy pasta, but
but there are similarities, and you look at a lot of our pop culture pulls from that. I mean, look at 11 in Stranger Things.
Oh yeah,
and Stranger Things
Fringe.
is
Fringe is another
right.
one.
Stranger Things is also based loosely on the Montauk Project. So
right,
there's
which is great. If you haven't seen, did you see the finale of Stranger Things yet?
I can't watch it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, and it's spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the finale, blah 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 blah. Hopper at the very end is like, "Hey, so I got this job out in Montauk. They want me to be a security or be a cop out in Montauk." Like it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Oh,
it was a
great.
nice little for those of us that knew about the Montauk Project. Beautiful. A nice little shout out.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of similarities. Or when you start looking at the similarities of other things, and even the Philadelphia experiment, and a bunch of other stuff that was happening at the time, it really, really makes you wonder if, our understanding of the UFO phenomena is even just because we have screen memories that were put there by the CIA.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that somehow all of it's connected. That's the way I've always felt about it. It's interconnected.
Same. And somehow it's connected. If anything, the CIA, I would think, would be trying to figure out how they could utilize the UFO phenomena in a psychological way.
For sure.
To control people in populations. I mean, that's what the Montauk Project started out as.
Yeah.
How can they broadcast a signal that'll cause people in the surrounding areas to go crazy or become complacent?
Or to become complacent. Exactly.
Yep. So anyways,
wild stuff.
I hope you all have enjoyed this tumble down the rabbit hole. And like Stefan said, if any of our listeners or people who are watching this on YouTube, if you feel like you're a part of the GATE program
or any of the other programs
or any of the other stuff, we'd love to hear about it. You can drop us an email at theshadowsignalpodcast@gmail.com. You can comment on the YouTube video. You can comment on the podcast episode, wherever you might be listening. But yeah, we'd love to know if this is something that you all have been a part of.
Yep, absolutely. And that being said, I think it's time to wrap up, Josh. It's time to get out of here. I've got some guys are coming over to do some testing on me. They've got some tones. I don't know.
Tones for you to listen to.
Yeah, some tones to listen to.
Well, let me throw this one in there real quick. Last little bit. Think about Hellier, and they were doing that thing where they got the tin can, and what's her face kept talking about the tones.
Maybe.
Yep. Maybe.
Could be. I'm telling you, it's all connected.
All right. So thank you all so much for listening, for watching. This has been a shorter episode, but I think it's been a really good one, really, really fun to talk about. And we really appreciate that you guys, continue to tune in and watch and hear what we have to say. So we really appreciate it.
From all around the world to straight in Kentucky, we thank you guys. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning into the Shadow Signal podcast. We are out of here. I have been Stefan, and just, stay close to the shadows and listen to the signal.
Yep, this has been Josh. The truth is now.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Good night.
If everything's ready here on the dark side of the moon, play the 5 tones.